Narissa. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another recipe video. This is a new recipe for me. It was a great recipe. I highly recommend it. I will definitely make it again. It is beef burgundy, which basically means it's a beef stew where the beef is braised in red wine. It creates a red wine sort of sauce. I am making this in the Instant Pot. However, I'm not pressure cooking it. I am using the slow cooker function on the Instant Pot. You definitely could pressurize this recipe or use the pressure cooker function on the Instant Pot. But I did find out a useful tip when making this in the Instant Pot and using the slow cooker function, which I will explain to you in a little bit. So beef burgundy, of course, it uses beef as the main protein, and you can use beef stew meat, chuck roast. What I do is I tend to use venison in the place of beef a lot of times. However, we did just buy was it a quarter of a beef, I think, from my father-in-law. So we do have lots of beef, and we don't generally do that. Actually, this is the first time that we've ever done that. We generally just use venison that my husband harvests every fall. So this recipe uses 3 pounds of your choice of meat, and it is cut up into approximately 1-inch chunks. So I am getting my venison cut up. I didn't realize that it was in such big of chunks, so I'm cooking a few large pieces there that I'm just going to set aside and eat as a snack, and then cut the rest of the pieces up into smaller chunks. Boneless beef chuck, like I said, or stew meat, some red cooking wine, chicken broth, which is funny that the recipe calls for chicken broth in a beef dish. You could also use beef broth, that would be fine. Tomato sauce, soy sauce, flour, and some garlic, about 3 cloves. I generally just use my already prepared garlic that I keep in the refrigerator. It works well for me and it's extremely convenient, so I used about 3 teaspoons. But also 2 tablespoons of finely chopped fresh thyme, which I also did not use. I went ahead and used dry thyme, which generally when you use dried herbs in place of fresh herbs, you want to use about 1/3 of what the recipe calls for. So I used about 2 teaspoons of dry thyme, about 5 medium carrots, about 1 pound of potatoes, and 8 ounces or so of fresh mushrooms that you can slice up. So you can see I'm just getting some of my meat into this cast iron skillet. I love using cast iron sometimes when I am not being lazy. I will go ahead and get the cast iron out. I got some cast iron from my grandpa. He gave me some of his old cast iron and I treasure it dearly. But I'm getting the meat browned up on all sides. This is definitely an important step in this recipe, or any recipe when you are going to add meat to a soup or a stew, is to brown the meat and get it nice and caramelized on the outside, which will lock in a lot of that flavor. So I'm just going to get this browned on the outside. It doesn't need to be cooked through because it will finish cooking in your slow cooker or Instant Pot. Browned on all sides, you want to go ahead and transfer it to your Instant Pot or your slow cooker, whichever one you are using, and get ready for the next step, which is to prepare the sauce. So you have your meat drippings, and then you want to go ahead and add your chicken broth, 2 cups of chicken broth, and your red wine. Now I just had some red wine on the top of the refrigerator. It was Cabernet, which was perfect for this recipe. And then you just want to simmer all of that together and let it reduce a little bit so it thickens up and condenses all of that flavor. Then you want to go ahead and add your soy sauce, 1/4 cup of soy sauce, as well as 1/2 cup of tomato sauce. So this is really going to up that flavor too. Mix everything together again and let it simmer so that all those flavors combine and condense into a little bit of a thicker sauce. Now at this point, the recipe calls for adding the flour into your sauce and mixing it in, 1/4 cup of flour. I hate doing this. It gets lumpy and you have to stir. What I should have done, and which I generally do because you can see the lumps forming. I like to just use a cornstarch slurry, or you can even use a flour slurry, but just be aware you're going to have to stir that quite a bit to get those lumps of flour out, or just use a cornstarch slurry. So the next step is to go ahead and add the yummy red sauce over the meat and then get to cubing up your potatoes. I like to leave the skins on my potatoes. I don't generally peel them. There are a lot of good nutrients and vitamins in those skins. Some people don't like them though. Let me know in the comments below, are you a skin on or a skin off type of person? I'm both. But in this case, I just left the skins on for this recipe. So you want to go ahead and add your potatoes, about 1 pound, as well as some carrots. I added baby carrots. The recipe calls for 5 medium sliced carrots. And then mushrooms, 8 ounces of fresh mushrooms sliced. These were so good. I love fresh mushrooms. I love canned mushrooms too, but the fresh mushrooms just really are different than the canned. So I'm just cleaning up the mushrooms here, and you can use a paper towel to just wipe off any dirt that you may see on the tops, bottoms, and stems, because there generally is. And then slice these mushrooms up and add them into the Instant Pot or your slow cooker. Some thyme and garlic. Now, like I mentioned before, if you are using dry herbs instead of fresh, you want to cut down the recipe amount by about 1/3. So I use about 2 teaspoons of thyme, and then for the garlic, I like to use the garlic that you just can, that's already chopped and prepared, that you can keep in the refrigerator. So the recipe calls for 3 garlic cloves, so I added about 3 teaspoons of the prepared garlic. So you want to give it a good mix, get everything combined, and then you want to cook this on low for 8 to 10 hours or high for 6 hours if you're using the slow cooker or the slow cooker function on the Instant Pot. If you are going to pressure cook, then you can go ahead and use the stew function. Now, full disclosure here, I did not taste this before ending the video, and what I would have noticed and what I would have recorded is me putting it back in the Instant Pot because the potatoes were not done. What I learned is that the Instant Pot slow cooker function does not cook like a regular slow cooker because the heat is different. It's only coming from the bottom. So you want to make sure that if you use the Instant Pot slow cooker function, you are going to be cooking it on high, not medium or low, because it's going to take much longer than a regular slow cooker would. So that is what I learned while making this recipe, a great Instant Pot tip. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons and coming back and visiting me. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!